it all stems from how we think. I think that the growth mindset piece is something that isn't utilized enough. I don't think it's taught enough, and it brings that conversation. And then you also see it in the kids and how they prepare and how they work for things. I think it's really important for us as educators to do that. And that's something that I had to learn from sports.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is a Monday afternoon, June 1st. Coffee with Kim-Seda. Unfortunately, the cup is empty, but my screen is full. That'll be the last corny joke for today. With Barbara Iverson, Dimitri Hodgkinson, and Dave Armendariz, wonderful teachers and coaches at Milken Community Schools. And today on episode 4 of Coffee with Kim-Seda, we're going to talk to them about and get to know them a little bit better. In particular, why I brought these three together is to talk about their experiences as coaches and former elite athletes, and to learn a little bit about that experience and then how that informs their worldview and their approach to coaching and teaching and working with others. So first, just want to start, and Ivy, I'll start with you. Where were you born and raised, and how did you end up in Los Angeles if you aren't from here originally?
I was born in New London, Connecticut. I came out west to California because my dad's side of the family all live in LA. Unfortunately, most of my parents' side in Connecticut had passed away, and there were only a few people left. Big family person. So my cousin invited me out here to go on the Colorado River with all the family. I went. I spent a couple of days here, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is your weather? And this was in December, and we're playing tennis at night, and we're swimming, and I'm thinking, in Connecticut, it's winter all year round. So she said, come on out. So I came out, and fortunate enough, I was interviewing at Viewpoint in Milken, and I'm so happy that Milken wanted me.
All right. And how many years at Milken?
I'll be going 21.
21, wow.
And I fought 21 years in Connecticut, so a long time.
Wow. All right, well, thank you. Welcome. Dave, how about you, the rookie on the screen?
So I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, grew up in Granada Hills. I am related to my brother. It's just me and my brother. We grew up in a really hardworking family. We went to Notre Dame, got our education there, played sports a lot. And through that journey, I met some pretty awesome people. And it just so happened that when I was 12 years old, I met Chris Scarlotta. He was coaching my brother, and that's actually how I ended up at Milken. I ran into him after my playing career ended, and it just so happened that they were looking for a teaching position. And in talking with him, he brought me over, and I fell in love with it. And it's been 2 years, just finished my second year. So I'm a local guy, but I feel like I've been all over the world because of sports. So I am a SoCal kid.
All right, thanks. Dimitri, how about you?
Grew up originally in San Diego, a suburb, El Cajon. That's where I was from originally. I ended up kind of bouncing around with school, ended up on the East Coast, got my first job in LA working as an intern at the time it was the Long Beach Summer Pro League. A lot of the kids now probably know it as the Vegas Summer Pro League, where the NBA teams and some of the free agents go and play. So that was my first job, was working there. And then from there, the PR firm that was working there at the time, the head there was a guy named Steve Brenner. He used to run the media relations program for the Dodgers during the Lasorda years. So for quite a while. And he looked up from his newspaper one day, and I didn't know who he was because he hadn't spent a lot of time at the pro league. And looks up and he says, "Hey, do you want to work a fight?" And I'm like, "A fight? Like, fight?" So he's talking about, like, you ever heard of Evander Holyfield? And I was like, of course. He's like, well, he's fighting Johnny Ruiz at the Paris and Las Vegas next month, and I need some help. And being fresh out of college, I needed a job, and so I went and did that, and then they gave me a full-time job the next week. So that's actually what brought me to LA originally. Spent about a year doing that, and I was actually still pursuing the opportunity to play basketball. And an opportunity came up in Norway, and so I ended up going out.
Yeah.
Kind of established myself here, and so that's how I ended up coming back here when my career in Norway was done.
Okay. So let me just pick up there, Dimitri. I'm going to keep you on the mic. Next question for all of you is just, can you tell us a little bit about your like significant, professional, college, or elite like playing or coaching experience, and just where you were, what you're doing, maybe at what age, and then I may have some follow-up questions. So go ahead, Dimitri.
Okay. So for me, I had kind of an interesting bounce around to get there. I'd started out at Santa Clara University, played a year of golf there actually, and that was when Steve Nash was a senior. Okay. Clara, so I got a chance to watch some really good basketball. I was nowhere near the level of those guys, obviously, at the time, but it kind of sparked that passion to want to play again. And so I started training, and I was like, man, I'm getting better. And I'm at 6'3". I was like an undersized power forward in high school. I was successful in high school at 6'3". I had a bigger brother, so I learned how to kind of be a bruiser inside, and had a great up and under move and a hook shot, could score over bigger guys. But it was kind of like relearning the game to develop my perimeter game. So I ended up going back home to junior college down in San Diego, started playing there, went back to the East Coast, and then the opportunity to play in Norway came about. It was kind of a childhood dream just to play and try to pursue that. It wasn't, I wasn't making, NBA money or big time money or anything. It was really more of an opportunity to go play. And unfortunately, an opportunity kind of opened up. It was crazy too, because I was scheduled to head out to Norway like a week after 9/11 hit. So my family was saying, I don't know, should go and this and that. And I was like, at the time I was in my early 20s, and I was like, this is a dream. I'm going to pursue it. And went out there, and that's how I got my Norwegian adventures in.
Yeah. Was it a pretty international group of players in the Norwegian league?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you had the core group of players is from Norway. You get some players from Scandinavia. We had, Swedish and Danish players. There were some American players there. I was really fortunate. My second year there, I played with a team that had guys from 9 or 10 different countries, which was really cool. That's one of my favorite, teams and experiences, getting to know those guys. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely a special time in my life.
How different was it, the type of basketball?
Well, besides the fact that they had a different key and a different 3-point line at the time. Yeah, it was interesting at the time. Kind of the Euro game was still getting that rap for not being as tough. It's not as physical. So for me, being a guy that came, I grew up with a big brother that used to, shove me into the garage door when we were playing in the driveway, at our house. And so, that physicality was a piece that helped me a lot, because not all the players there were quite as physical at the time. So that was a little bit different. Actually, a funny thing, one time I was in France, it's a different story, but played zone in a pickup game, which had never been done before in my 20 plus years at the time of playing basketball. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, it was just kind of getting used to the key, getting used to the different ways the refs approach the game, some of the rules. some of the surfaces, like the court surfaces there, they play on, they have a lot of, traditional basketball courts, but then they have a lot of facilities that are multi-use. And they have a game over in Europe that's pretty popular called handball, which you may or may not be familiar with. I'm sure the crew in front of me is. Team handball. And so a lot of the courts we played on were combination basketball and handball courts.
Cool. Ivy, how about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, I was very fortunate in Connecticut to grow up in a neighborhood with 12 boys. So every day, my parents kicked us out the door. There was no TV, no cartoons, none of that stuff. So the 12 boys and myself, whether it was football season, basketball season, baseball season, we were outside playing. It could snow and we could have 2 feet of snow, but we all would walk down to the court with our shovel in hand and would all shovel the courts off until it was good, and then we'd start playing. And by the time 2 hours later, we're playing with shorts and t-shirts with 2 feet of snow outside us. So I was very fortunate. I loved playing. That's all I knew. And unfortunately, I would go to school with these guys, and my best friends were all guys because that's all I did was play basketball, play football, play baseball, you name it. So it wasn't until I went to high school that I actually played with girls. And the first year was really hard. But my mom was great. She said, you have a decision to make. You can either have the girls jump on your back and play hard for you, or you can be a brat and play all by yourself on the court. So that's when I realized that I needed to teach them and be supportive of them. And that's kind of what I bring to Milken now, that whole philosophy. And then I went to try out for the professional softball team on a dare because somebody said I couldn't make it, and don't ever tell me I can't do anything. So I went, and all my friends got cut the first day, and then the second cut I make and the third cut, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to make this team, I think. And then I did make the team, and I started to play, and it was incredible, but they told me that you're going to have to give up your senior year of college if you continue to play. And it was a big decision because I played field hockey, basketball, and softball on the college level, and that was not something I was willing to give up, especially back then because professional softball was a hit or miss from season to season. So, and I'm so glad I didn't stay because the next year it folded. So I would have given up my 3 seasons, and then I would have had nothing to go back to. So that's all I know are playing and games and competition and loving teammates and etc.
Yeah. Remind me, I want to get back to this question. I want to ask Dave about his experience, but for all 3 of you, thinking about the specialization of high school athletes now, and Dave, maybe you touch upon that, because when I grew up, I played 2 or 3 sports, but now it's like, it seems like the one sport, but you all are more familiar. So,
well, I was just about to touch on that. Obviously you heard the other 2 coaches talking about how they played it in a variety of sports, and that was the same with me. My parents didn't want me to specialize. I played football, basketball, and baseball, played soccer a little bit, but it was really just baseball and football for me that I was very serious about leading into high school. And I had a very, very difficult decision to make when I got to high school. Do I continue to play both, or do I specialize and play baseball? And it ended up working out to where I did do both. And after my sophomore year, I partially dislocated my left shoulder. And the thought of, oh my gosh, if that was your right shoulder, your baseball career would suffer. So that is when I specialized for my junior and senior year. Because of that, I had a better opportunity to get a scholarship. I ended up at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I think since I didn't specialize early on, my connections to other sports, even at the college level, in terms of working out with the football players, talking with the golfers and swimmers about certain things in terms of training, helped me with me in my own game. So ended up there, was there for 3 years. I went to Cal Poly Pomona for my last year, had a really good season, was able to make it to our regional. We unfortunately lost that regional in a heartbreaking game. And that spring in June, I got drafted, had an opportunity to play 3 years for the Cleveland Indians organization, bounced around city to city, 14-hour bus rides, hanging out with Dominicans, Venezuelans, Cubans, Taiwanese players. So such a special opportunity for me to get to know a variety of cultures. And I think because of that, it drove me a little bit more to finish my degree at Cal Poly Pomona, which I every fall I would go back and continue my education. I actually decided to go into liberal studies with a sociology concentration because of the experiences that I've been through. And it's all because of sport. I was very fortunate in that regard. But to touch on that last part that you asked about specialization, play multiple sports. I played football to give my arm a rest because I knew if I would just throw, eventually I would probably hit the wall and get injured. So that was kind of the break for me, but I loved football. I had so much passion for that competition that Coach Iverson was talking about. I just love competing. It wasn't about, oh, I want to be a pro football player. No, I wanted to compete and try to be the best that I could be and build that team community, which is really special for me in my career.
Yeah. Ivy or Dimitri, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'm also, always looked forward to the next season. So during basketball season, I was down in my basement with a rug on a rope pitching because I knew I had to get my 100 pitches in. And so it wasn't like I took a season off, and then I had to make sure I had for field hockey 100 flicks, 100 scoops, and 100 push passes in. So I'm playing basketball, I'm studying, but I'm still on those 2 other sports, working it at night. And then my parents hated if I missed a foul shot in a game because that meant when I came home, the lights had to go on and I couldn't come in until I made 25 foul shots in a row. So they're praying. I can see them. I look at them sitting in the stands and please make it, please make it. So I say play multiple sports and it gives my body a rest, like Dave said, of throwing. Can you imagine if I had to just threw softballs all the time? I used different muscle groups, and knock on wood, I never had a serious injury because I think I used all the muscle groups differently.
Yeah, I would say what Ivy's saying's got me thinking about a couple things, but one is that I think, especially in high school, if you actually have the ability and aspirations to play at a higher level, if you want to play in college, you sort of have to lean in a direction, right? So you kind of know, okay, I'm going to play baseball or basketball or whatever sport, and like, that's my main sport, right? Like that's the sport I put my most energy into. That's the sport that in the off season, I'm going to put time developing my skills and my physical abilities around that sport. But playing multiple sports allows you not only the physical break, which I think there's been a lot of research that shows that there's a benefit to the body being challenged in different ways, but just the mental break. It's different.
Absolutely.
From basketball season to golf season were 2 totally different sports for me. And, the first month of the golf season, like my game would suffer because I hadn't played golf in months. And so it took me a little while to get my swing and my short game back. But I really enjoyed kind of the combination of having that intense physical team sport and then bouncing out to this more cerebral, less physically intense, more, motor skill and fine tune, requirements and that zoned in focus. that suits me as well. So I liked having the balance of different challenges. I ran cross country a couple years in high school as well, just kind of to stay in shape. And I definitely think there's benefits to doing different things. I would say these days, certainly leaning in one direction is helpful if that's, if you have a passion for a sport and it's what you want to pursue. But certainly that balance is big. And then one other thing that Ivy mentioned that got me thinking about my younger days. My house, I had two things I loved to do. One was when I was a little kid, I had this I call it a 6 foot jammy jam and one of those mini basketballs. I'd go out and throw down dunks like I was Michael Jordan, and I would shoot threes like Larry Bird, and that was a lot of fun. And another thing with golf, my dad was actually he was really supportive of sports. He wasn't really necessarily a great athlete himself, but super supportive of his kids in that area. And so one of the things I used to do during the golf season, he had built this like putting green at the house. It was carpet and 2x4s and plywood, and the cup was like a gardener, like something you'd find in the garden or whatever. And it was sweet. I could lift it up and put something under it and get putts working left to right to left, downhill, uphill. And
That's
it was
awesome.
at 10 feet. And I would just, I would come home after, playing golf outside till it was dark, and then I'd do my homework. And then at night I'd go back out there into the garage and just hit putts all night. And that was really helpful. But I just think that different mental challenge of playing different sports is actually a secret benefit to doing it.
Yeah. Kind of related to that, I was wondering, so you all made a transition to being coaches and teachers in schools. I'm wondering what lesson or lessons you bring from your athletic experiences to your work. Whether it be working with colleagues, whether it be working with students. Dave, I'm even thinking about you had talked about just kind of the diverse nature of the teams that you played with, and maybe even that had an impact to how you work with people. So any one of you could start, but I'm wondering what lessons you draw from there and how it impacts the way you teach and coach and interact with kids and colleagues.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in our PE department, we just finished a growth mindset unit that ran for the second part of our virtual learning. And I would say it's is how powerful our minds are when we can set our minds to something with the recognition that, yes, there could be failure or fear. And reaching out to a student on a foundational level like that for me has been really, really important. That's how I've been able to build connections with a lot of these students. And that sparks a conversation, and that's how you get to know your students. And I think for me, I've seen so much of the world in terms of thought and practice and execution that it all stems from how we think. I think that the growth mindset piece is something that isn't utilized enough. I don't think it's taught enough. And it brings that conversation. And then you also see it in the kids and how they prepare and how they work for things. I think it's really important for us as educators to do that. And that's something that I had to learn from sports.
Okay.
But if I can add that all our experiences when we played on team, I mean, I had the red carpet rolled out for me everywhere I went, no matter what sport. And then my senior year, they brought in a lot of new players. And I started, but the first whistle, I went to the bench. And I was really frustrated. My mother looked at me and said, take this lesson, because you are going to have some kids on your bench when you start coaching, and now you know how they feel. Okay, so as you're coaching that game, I want you to look down there, and then you can honestly say, I can relate. So I can look at so many different situations. I played for a coach that yelled and screamed, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. So I'm sure all of us can go to all our coaches, all our experiences, what teams really function well were the teams that did team bonding. So Coach Deanport and I do a whole lot of team bonding with our girls because we know those teams function really well. So it really had to be all the experiences all over the place that really you bring back and kind of mold you of who you are.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I would say there's the personal experience in it, and then there's the team experience. And I think the personal experience of having, reached certain levels of success, but also, being cut from teams and, knowing both that, really high experience of getting to a level you wanted to, or, scoring a certain number of points in a game or winning a championship. Those things are all super exciting. But also, having been cut from a team, or, not reaching a goal that you wanted to, even though you worked hard for it. I think learning how to deal with that type of up and down and the adversity that goes with that is really big. I think that's something that, even as an adult now, I mean, we see what's going on in the world. We all have our ups and downs. And I think being able to experience that helps because when things do get tough, you kind of, even if it's a struggle at times, there's a reserve in there that, you can ultimately lean on.
Absolutely.
From a team perspective, I think, it was interesting watching The Last Dance recently. And one of the things that I thought was really magical about what Phil Jackson has always been so successful with is really being able to honor the individual and yet maximize individual talents within a team framework and getting everyone bought into, the idea of the team being greater than the individual, but at the same time honoring the individual enough to allow them to thrive. And I think that's a really delicate, challenging thing to do as a teacher and a coach is to honor individual learning styles, individual mindset, individual approach to, things, how you go about wanting to train and practice. We all know there's some kids that are gamers who in practice they struggle and in games they shine. And then you have other kids who are, man, in practice they're destroying everyone. And then in games it's harder. And I just think you get a good read on that because you've had such a diverse range of experiences as an athlete. So I think that's something that stood out to me.
What is your what's your one hope or wish for Milken athletics in the next, let's say, 5 years? Going a little bit off script, but I just was thinking about it. What's your hope? What's your wish?
First,
I'll say for me, for my hope and wish, I think we've done such a good job of creating a positive culture. And I want to praise Miss Collins, who started the cheerleading program, because tying in the community piece elevates play. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I think that with the culture that's already started, which has been a really positive and driven group of not only athletes, but coaches, with that community piece, it's more about community and culture, which is our mission to begin with. And I really, look forward to seeing that develop over the next couple of years. So shout out Miss Collins, because that's awesome. I think it's great for our school.
Cool. Thanks. Ivy or Dimitri?
I always wish for more involvement from our teachers in the classroom and more involvement from the students themselves. I mean, it's quite evident when we have games during the school day. Last year when the volleyball team played at 1 p.m. and they played a really higher seed, Avalon, we crushed them in 3. Pillabos comes to town during a school day. We have the energy, we have the excitement in the gym, and we upset Pillabos and we go to CIF. So not that I played in front of a lot of fans when I grew up, but to have fans and community in the gym is something I always strive to do for our kids, because the first thing a kid will say, Coach, Mr. Holton is in the stands. They'll always tell me what teacher has come into the gym and is in the stands to watch the game. And it's really important for them. And that's, you know, what I'm striving to accomplish in the next couple of years, get more people energized about attending our games.
Yeah, I think the spirit piece is huge. I think that, you know, we actually have some untapped potential in terms of our athletic programs. You know, a lot of our kids at the middle school level are competing at a decent level. Our high school teams have done very well. I think it's an area, if you couple the community piece with, you know, just a little bit deeper commitment on the athletic side in terms of, you know, student athletes. I think if you look at what is required of the high school student athlete, I think our kids sometimes don't have an understanding of how much commitment other kids their age sometimes are putting into being highly successful. You know, it's one thing to participate, and I think that's an admirable goal. And I just think that there's, you know, we have the ability and the potential and the capable athletes to compete at an even higher level. And I think it with just a little bit tweak in how some of the kids approach you know, development in the off season, maybe playing a little bit more club sport, you know, in their particular sport. Just some little things that, you know, small steps can magnify our success. And we've seen when our tennis team won a championship, or our, you know, boys basketball team a few years ago won a championship, the community gets fired up about it. And like Ivy's saying, I mean, I think part of that is if the community gets fired up on the front end, you're going to see more of that success and more of that commitment, because people are going to be, man, this is really exciting. And so I think we have really strong programs. And I think that, you know, there's even more in terms of that energy and that commitment that would help us elevate even further.
But if we had a few more club players who have had many more experiences and know what it's like to commit and give up and dedicate to a program, that would definitely help us, because the majority of our kids, their experience in volleyball is being with Coach Steenport starting in 7, 8 through the high school. And when you bring in some outside club kids that are giving up weekends and nights and hours, then they bring this energy and this dedication. Come on, guys, we got to be doing this. And that's also helpful.
Thank you for that. I'm going to get to last question here. Maybe one of the last questions. But Ivy, I want to start with you. And the question for everyone is, so we're recording this on June 1st. Yesterday was the upper school graduation for the seniors. So Ivy, I'd love for you to give a shout out to the 3 signings of athletes that played in your program. And also for each of you, what is a piece of advice that you would give to graduating seniors, or just to the students right now who are learning? I mean, it's pandemic times. Over the weekend, there have been protests and looting and curfews. I don't want to. So the bigger question is, what piece of advice you would give? I mean, we could talk for hours, but I also want Ivy to acknowledge the great work of the program and the 3 kids I know that had signings last week, I believe.
Yeah, Allie Lowe, Griffin Feldman, Kayla Levine, they had a passion. And with that passion, they gave up a lot. They gave up all the parties on the weekends. They gave up trips. They gave up summer camps just to fulfill their goal. You know, I was Kayla's coach, and God, I loved her passion. I loved her love for the game. Both of us could relate. You know, there was a connection there because of it. Griffin, he always told me, Coach, I'm going to be on the golf course. Coach, I got this tournament. So he was great to bring me in and allow me to go and follow him. But when I watched him in state play, that he was so focused and so determined. And we talk about this positive mindset. This kid has it, and then Allie Lowe, she knew what she wanted. I walk into her living room the other day and she's got a balance beam in the living room. And
Wow.
just the commitment and the dedication that these 3 kids have put towards achieving their goal. It takes time, so if that's something you would like to do in your life, these 3 guys gave up everything to make sure they could accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, and they did. And I'm so proud of them. I love them all, and I wish them so much luck and success.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I definitely think some advice is wrapped up into that message of just kind of with some sacrifice and discipline, sky can be the limit. But congratulations to you and those 3 athletes and their families. Dave, how about you? A piece of advice?
Yeah, I would say whether it's going through your college experience, your first job interview, financial issues, just remember you have support. Lean on your support systems. I know I can speak for myself as well as these other coaches. We've had amazing foundations set because of the people around us. And when times are good, lean on that support. When times are hard, lean on them even harder, because those people are really going to help you through good times and bad. Having that communication element is so key. And just understand, if you do not obtain something, try again. Keep working and lean on your support system.
Well said.
How about you, Dimitri?
Yeah, so along the communication lines, I think learning how to communicate well is really important. I come from a kind of a loud, passionate, emotional family, and so for those that know me, I've got kind of a big mouth. But learning how to listen is a big skill that I'm learning in adulthood. Is a lot more important than I knew. When I was younger, leadership was more about voice and not as much about ears. And I think that starts with your relationship with yourself and learning to kind of get a feel for and trust your internal compass. Being able to do things from a place of courage, not a place of fear. And then that translates, I think, into your relationships. And can't claim to be an expert, but I can say that, when communication has faltered, or when I've made decisions out of fear and not courage, or didn't trust my internal compass, that's when I've struggled the most. And so that would be nice.
Absolutely.
It made me think about what Fred Proctor used to say. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
We should listen twice as much.
I love that man.
Yeah. Quick lightning round. Who was your childhood idol in terms of an athlete? I'm going to start and say Magic Johnson. Dave, how about you?
Derek Jeter.
All right. Dimitri?
I have to say 3. I can't help it.
I'm going to mute you after 1.
I'm going to go well for LA, but Magic and Bird.
Okay.
And of course, MJ. I used to watch Come Fly With Me videos. Come Fly With Me was a VHS video of Michael Jordan's highlights when he was early in his career. And I used to watch those before every game when I played. So,
Dave, do you know what VHS is?
Yes, I do. I'm not that young. Come on. I used to watch it all the time.
Watch it.
Watch it?
Yeah. The machine, right? The thing was heavy.
Yeah, it's about that big.
Yeah.
Ivy,
we got
how about
DVD
you?
players.
Larry Bird.
Bird, okay. Who is an athlete that you love to watch right now? the way they play, their energy, their ethic?
Francisco Lindor, the shortstop for the Cleveland Indians.
Okay.
His nickname is Mr. Smile. He loves his life. He's always smiling. Great energy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably say Steph Curry. I just think, I have a soft spot for the underdog, and I think for a guy who's kind of undersized and is a good athlete but not a great athlete at the NBA level, to accomplish what he's accomplished is stellar. So I feel like he's a pretty impressive athlete.
Yeah. Ivy?
Hard for me because I more so pick a team. Like my favorite team to watch is Duke because they're all one and when they play on the floor. So I really can't pick, the guard or the big man. I have to say the Duke 5 that are on the court.
Yeah. I don't know why it's coming to mind for me right now, but I would probably say Kike Hernandez with the Dodgers. Just his energy and his life and his spirit, and I really want to get back to Dodger Stadium sometime soon. But just his willingness to be the utility player. That's kind of what I transitioned into my junior and senior year on my baseball team. So I just love that he's kind of ready to go. Okay, shortstop today, second, center field, left field. Yeah, so Kike.
Yep.
All right, to all of you, it was great to have a chat and to get to know you better, and I hope folks appreciate it. And for the audience out there, coffee with Kim-Seda. Maybe this should have been Gatorade with Kim-Seda today. We'll see you for episode 5 sometime soon. All right, be safe and be well.
You got it. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you,
Thank
Jason.
you, guys. It was good talking with you.
Thank you.